What is going on, everybody? It's Jason here with Buy, Build, Sell. I'm a Los Angeles contractor and developer, and today we are going to be talking about LID planters. What is LID? What does it stand for? It stands for low impact development. That basically means that we are trying to lower the impact that the developments, the houses, are going to make on the environment. All right, let's talk about this briefly, okay? Because we're going to go through a whole bunch of footage that's going to show you what these planters are, how we build them, all that sort of stuff. But briefly, we're trying to lessen the amount of water that's going into the city streets and keep it on the properties themselves. As if there was no house here to begin with, we're catching all of that rainwater, directing it into these planters, or sometimes you'll see those big barrels on those new construction homes. So those barrels, those planters, that's where all that water is going. And the hope is, and the use is that that water is actually going to be used on site. Now, I prefer planters over barrels because planters actually end up using the water themselves. Barrels, you have to actually untap the water and then hook up a hose and actually use it, which some people do. I'm not saying they won't, but I know someone like me who is, without better words, lazy, okay? Isn't gonna go ahead and do that. I might as well just turn on my sprinklers and get that done. I'm not gonna like undo my barrels so that way I can get water where I need it to go. So for me, this ends up being a much better solution and actually achieves the goal that we're trying to achieve. It is more expensive. It does take a lot more time. Overall, it's a bigger process, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it does a better job. So I'm a bigger fan of the LIDs. It doesn't mean I don't have projects where we do put the barrels in. That happens every now and again as well. Like on Venice and on Radcliffe, we will have planters. So low impact development, essentially meaning lessen the impact that we're gonna make on the environment while building this house. All right, that's what these things are. That's what we're doing, and let's get into it. Hey guys, since I got you here, if you can, go ahead, press that subscribe button, press that like button. It lets other people just like you know they may like this video too. And of course, let's start a conversation in the comments. I'd love to see you there. My goal here is to tell you about these big bulky planters that get installed into the houses. You see these a lot. You see big barrels that carry about 260 gallons. Sometimes they carry 130 gallons. I don't know what the gallon amount is here because they don't actually specify what the gallon needs to be held here. They specify the depth and the square footage that needs to meet. So here's what this looks like. This is an LID planter, and essentially what that means is that it's grabbing all of the rainwater from the roof and from everywhere and gathering it in certain spots. So on this side of the house, we only have one planter. On the back side of the house, we have another planter. On that side of the house, we have another planter. And in the front of the house, we have that big planter that everyone can really see. What this is doing is essentially, if we were trying to imagine there is no house here, or the existing house was here, and all of that rainwater that would come onto the property and be used on the property without rain runoff. We're trying to eliminate the rain runoff. Okay, we want to try to keep as much of the water on the site as possible. So that's the reason why when we're doing concrete, we're spacing out 4 inches for percolation, right? We're trying to get as much water to not run off into the drains, and that those are the only, for really truthfully, the overflows, okay? So what we have in here is the rain planter, and I kind of want to just discuss it. This right here is the rain spout. This is the rain gutter, sorry. So this is what is carrying that water down into the planter. Now you can see here, you have plenty of space between here and the bottom of the planter, and that's landing on gravel. And the reason why it's landing on gravel is because gravel is less likely to erode over time from the water. So anything that's not gravel is probably going to disperse, okay? So gravel has the best chance of kind of hitting the water, hitting the gravel, and then percolating through that. And it's gonna go into this planter. Now, let's say we have a really heavy rain and a ton of water happens here. That's what this is for. This is called the overflow. Now, this is set at 3 inches below the top of the planter, and that's going to make sure that the water can't get over the planter. Obviously, you don't want to have a big spill here, it can cause a lot of issues. So we're having 2 ways of draining out the water, and that's one, percolating the water down into the planter, so all that water is going to sit in the planter, And then if it gets too high, it'll go into the overflow and then out the drain. And that's basically what these things are for. You know, we put vegetation in there to help, to kind of help absorb that water as well, keep that water used appropriately. We have waterproofing on the inside of this. That's meant for really just truthfully protecting the visual aesthetic of the planter from the outside. So looking at it from the outside, we have this stucco wall. And if we didn't waterproof it appropriately, you'd get a lot of water seeking through all of the small holes of the concrete, getting out, and then eventually probably end up breaking the stucco as well. So avoiding a big mess by doing that. That's basically the breakdown of the planter. And I will show you the big planter in the front, because that's probably the coolest one and the most obvious one on the house, okay? So come on. The reason why I want to show you the LID planter in the front is one, because it's very obvious that it's there, right? We can't really get away from it, okay? And two, I want to kind of talk to you about like some of the things that I had to do to make this really work, okay? Because these are actually really big planters. What you see in the front right here is actually relatively small in comparison to what you would think you were seeing. But it's actually much bigger. It's deeper than the ground. So we're gonna come down here. You can briefly kind of see that in the corner of the planter right there, you can see a lot more stucco, right? And on the end there, you can see a lot less, right? But actually, in reality, the whole thing is completely the same size. It's just being covered up, okay? And regraded to make it look like this. And we tried to minimize the size of this planter in the front because we really wanted to have this beautiful visual in the front here and making sure that it felt right and felt good. If I felt like we were taking up too much volume going higher, I felt like it wouldn't be right. So we actually sunk it into the ground and got it where we needed it to be, where I felt it would be appropriate. The thing is, like, this thing requires 55 inches from the top of the floor to the bottom of the planter. So it's pretty big. That's almost 5 feet. So just in relative terms here, so just so you can kind of visually see it, I'm just under 6 feet. Don't question it, don't look it up. I'm like 5'10", 5'11", all right? Well, somewhere there. And like this is just somewhere right here. So clearly below the ground, it's like this much more, somewhere about that, maybe like 1.5 feet further down than we even see it. So just to give you that visual that this is carrying a ton of water, more than just 260 gallons most likely.